Thank you, everybody, for spending time listening to this presentation from In-Q-Tel. My name is George Hoyem. I'm the managing partner at In-Q-Tel here, running part of our West Coast investment team, and I manage part of our enterprise business. Delighted to walk you through what In-Q-Tel does, how we do it, perhaps give some learnings and findings that you can share in some of your own programs. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to basically give you an In-Q-Tel overview for a few minutes. We're going to talk a little bit about our investment model. In-Q-Tel, by the way, has been around for 20 years, so we've been through several iterations of this to improve our process and our workflow and our efficacy. We're also going to talk about how we partner and collaborate with our parent. These are intelligence community agencies. I'll talk about that in a moment. And then a general discussion to close on a few things around impact, value, our impact process, and some other value-add activities, and a couple of final musings when we're done. So to start off with, just to frame it for you, In-Q-Tel is a private, independent, non-for-profit. We're actually a 501c3, and we are a firm that has the intersection, a strategic investment firm that's the intersection of the venture capital community, the 2,000 plus VCs, the startup community, the 18,000 plus venture-backed companies active at any one time, and the government partners that we serve. And the goal is to source startup technologies from the startup community and guide those technologies into problems of national intelligence. So In-Q-Tel is a global investment firm with strategic impact. We have 5 offices around the world. I'm in here at our Silicon Valley office. Our headquarters is in Arlington, Virginia, and we have an office in Boston, in addition to an office in Sydney, Australia, and London in the UK, partnering with our counterparts and investing in those geographies overseas. Our portfolio is over 500 companies over the 20 years we've been around. We do about 50 to 60 new investments a year. I'll talk more about that in a minute. About 10% of our investments are outside the US, and we're very proud of the fact that we actually pilot 70% of our investments against real problems. So the idea is to source innovation, guide them into problems of national intelligence, and pilot that capability against a real problem. And about 50% of our companies we invest in get adopted after the fact, which is when the company and the customer conduct business directly after we've done our thing, which I'll describe in a minute. So we have a very novel investment model, and we recognize that not all VCs or corporate VCs can implement this model, but for us, we source innovation from the startup technology, and the last place in the world a startup's going to go is knock on the door of the CIA. And we'll talk about the agencies we support in a minute, but CIA is our primary sponsoring agency. And the goal is that we want to pilot this technology against a real problem, but 99% of the time, the startup technology companies have never done business with the government, and they may need features and capabilities to actually pilot their tech against a real problem. So we actually wrap our investment in an adaptation project we call a work program, where we help specify features from their commercial roadmap and implement those features in an adaptation project, and then deliver that into a pilot at scale against a real problem. So our investment comes in the form of both equity, where we take a board observer seat in every deal we do, but also, more importantly, some non-recurring engineering dollars that help facilitate the commercial roadmap and deliver the pilot at scale against a real problem. We like to highlight to at least our government partners and certainly our citizens, because we're taxpayer funded, that we leverage $1 of investment from In-Q-Tel generates $18 in venture capital leverage, which is a great thing for all of us. So we have partnerships and collaboration with 8 intelligence directorates. I'm not going to go through all the agencies here, but CIA, FBI, the National Security Agency, et cetera. And these agencies each have a thing called an In-Q-Tel Interface Center. And on their payroll, they have a group of people between 1 and 30 in the case of the CIA, where they have a staff of people that help us identify problem sets that we can use to target technology from the startup community at. And we get those people to also get commitments to pilot this technology against real problems before we do a deal. And we do that in a novel way where we actually generate what we call a value statement. So think of each one of these agencies from a venture capital perspective or a corporate venture capital perspective is like a P&L inside of a big corporation. So these are like business units. And then we get them to commit to piloting a capability and tell us what the impact will be if it actually works. That's called an impact quantification. And we do that before we make an investment, which is very key. We also have on our staff, In-Q-Tel is about 170 people, and we have an investment team, a very deep technical bench of 40 subject matter specialists that are very closely aligned with the customers. We have a program management function that's actually on our payroll a systems engineering and technical testing staff to make sure we don't deliver startup tech into these big agencies that blows up. We know it's startups and that happens. And then we also have a customer interface team that manages these relationships of what you would consider in a corporate VC world P&Ls. In closing, and just wrap up a few points, the approach to solution transfer is kind of key to the way we do it. And I'll just walk you through the journey of identifying problems to get to a deal. So every year we get all of our agencies to create what we call a problem set mapping. So they tell us in a perfect world, what are the solutions you could find in the venture community that could help us solve problems. Then we get them to commit when we do a deal to a value statement up front. I mentioned that earlier, where they actually say, we will pilot this against a real problem, and we will also give you the impact potential if we actually get this thing working against the solution. And then we get dedicated solution transfer resources inside the agency and on our team to help make sure that there's people around when these big software stacks or solutions come over the wall to actually work with the company and the customer against their problem. And then more importantly, in the last phase of this, we quantify what we get from an impact perspective. We quantify how many pilots we do, and we quantify how many adoptions we get. Our highest level measurement is pilots and adoptions against real problems. And we measure and quantify ourselves against that every year, report that to our board of directors, and report that back to our customers through what we call impact boards and solution transfer stories. We convene review boards to actually highlight those to our agency partners. So if you think about it in the corporate venture construct, this would be equivalent of reporting to the CEO of the board of directors the impact you're making through these investments. The other thing about our process, just walking through how we get all of our deals through the pipe and how we deliver them on mission impact targets. We have the problem set identification, but the deal pipeline process starts with what we call a meeting note. So we will meet with 1,000 companies a year, and these companies, we will each document them into a couple of page report. Think of it as like a little analyst report. And then we send that out to the listeners in the equivalent of the P&Ls in a corporation. And we will actually report out what we're seeing. And that's one way we source signals from people who say, that's really interesting. I would love to try that against a real problem. That we boil down into what we call a company of interest cameo. So it's a couple of page, more curated version where we will present that out to the customer saying, this company we vetted, we've looked at the solution, we have signals from the enterprise that they want to do a transaction here. And if we can find the right support, we will actually make an investment, or probably make an investment. And that's called a company of interest. We do about 100 of those. So we boil 1,000 things we look at down to 100 of those. And out of those company of interest, then we actually transact with about 50 to 60 a year. Now, interestingly, in our model, we support 8 agencies, but we also get many times 1, 2, sometimes 6 agencies to work on the same transaction together. So we're putting a lot of wood behind one arrow. There's a shared model where all of these agencies that participate can get the leverage of both working with each other and leveraging the dollars from each one of these partners against this problem area. And then the last thing we do is we also have tangentials, solution transfer, and what I call a situational awareness, things that we do for our customers. In order to share the knowledge that we have and we develop, which fits also in a corporate construct, we hold things, first thing we do, we hold these things called technology focus days, where we'll take an area like quantum computing or edge computing, and we will actually convene thought leaders, subject matter experts, and we will hold an event to share all that information with our partners and educate them, which creates deals. We also have global and regional market surveys where we'll take an area of emerging interest in the venture capital community, autonomous vehicles, edge computing, et cetera. And we will canvass the whole market, look at all the companies and pick the top winners and present that to our customers of places that we want to do deals. We also do roundtables to convene thought holders. And then once a year, we hold what we call a CEO summit where we bring all of our portfolio together from the last couple of years and have each one of them give speed presentations in kind of a Shark Tank format to share these companies with all the other agencies that we serve. And we do something equivalent to that in the East Coast called a Tech Showcase. So that's how In-Q-Tel works. Thank you for taking the time and learning more about our model. I'm happy to help answer any questions for people later. Thank you very much.